Welcome. You're watching The Big Question. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. The question that we're asking today is one that perhaps has not even crossed your mind. It's a surreptitious method of stealing from you while you use some of your most favorite apps. For example, how many times while browsing has your grocery delivery app seen a pop-up flash saying only 2 left in stock and you rush to add it to your cart? Or when you're booking flights for your next trip, at checkout, you notice a different and usually a much higher price that you originally saw. Or spotted a donation in an add-on feature you never selected in the first place. Well, it's not a one-off technical glitch, but rather a more calculated tactic, what we now know as dark patterns. Simply put, a dark pattern is a deceptive design element in a user interface that pushes users towards decisions they may not have made with full information or intention. And now the government has cracked down on this manipulative tactic in an effort to protect consumers. In a meeting held by the Consumer Affairs Ministry with top representatives of major e-commerce platforms, the government has identified 13 such dark patterns. It has also issued formal notices to 11 companies, and reportedly this includes major players like Zepto, Rapido, Uber and Ola for deploying these deceptive practices. Consumer Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi has asked these companies to conduct internal audits and has proposed setting up a joint working group to look into the issue. On top of that, the government has launched 3 apps aimed at detecting and preventing these dark patterns. Just to give you a sense of how big this problem is, in 2024, a report by the Advertising Standard Council of India found that 52 of the top 53 most downloaded apps in India use at least one form of dark patterns. Local Circles also did a comprehensive survey spanning over the course of 18 months and found that 54% of platforms use forced action. That means forcing users to do something undesirable to achieve what they want them to do. So think of things like accepting cookies on a website or giving your email ID to proceed to the website. And the second most common is called drip pricing. This is where extra fees are only revealed at the final checkout step. This was used by 48% companies. And it's not a problem limited to one sector, but rather spans across edtech, travel, e-commerce, quick commerce, banking, ride-hailing. So basically almost all the apps that you use in your daily life. So the big question really is, are companies using dark patterns to take you for a ride, and what do we need to do to stop them? Now, before we get into the details of that conversation, take a look at this special report where we actually demonstrate for you how dark patterns are used in your daily life.
Well, differential pricing on Android and iOS devices are not the only dark patterns that you need to be worried about. In fact, this is one of the dark pattern trends that seems to have gone out of fashion lately. But the government of India has identified 13 different types of dark patterns and has sat with all industry stakeholders to make sure that these are curbed. So let us take you through some of these dark patterns which you may or may not be aware are pinching your wallets. The first one is false urgency. We found this on Swiggy, for instance. This timer on the homepage shows you a very short time frame for a good deal, creating a sense of urgency for you, the consumer. But click on the timer and it takes you to the restaurants which are being promoted. The next dark pattern is basket sneaking. We found this happening on Ixigo, where your simple train ticket automatically comes with an added fee for free cancellation and travel insurance. Did you ask for it? Doesn't matter. Confirm shaming is something you might find on Ixigo as well. This message, for instance, looks a lot like a guilt trip, right? Next, we take a look at something very widespread as a dark pattern: nagging. X, for instance, is filled with subscription and verification nudges. No page goes without asking you for that extra buck. Subscription traps are something that you have probably seen on platforms like YouTube. You can easily subscribe to YouTube Premium, but do you know how to unsubscribe? Well, neither does YouTube. Zepto, like many other quick commerce apps, adds on hidden costs in the form of handling and delivery and partner fees, which ends up ballooning your final order value. Well, the government taking note of these dark patterns is ultimately good news for us. These companies have been asked to do audits themselves and have been asked to comply with a certain set of guidelines. But how soon will you and I get to see the benefits of these rules is anybody's guess.
All right, to speak more on this, I'm joined by Akash Anand. He's founder of Bella Vita, CEO of Wolfpack Labs. Sachin Taparia, chairman and founder of Local Circles, joins us on the show. He has done this survey which shows the extent of use of dark patterns. Madhav Kasturia, founder and CEO of Zippy, joining us on the show today. And I'm also speaking with Dr. Anand Sharma, national chairman, Consumer Confederation of India. Welcome to all of you and thank you so much for speaking with us. Madhav, I'm actually going to start with you. Just try to explain to us how these dark patterns are being ingrained. And clearly, companies today cannot come and say these are technical glitches or mistake. It's part of the design, isn't it?
It's part of the design. It's very much part of the design. And think of it from the lens of an e-commerce platform, right? They have to make the slope very, very slippery. So right from when the discovery happens on the platform, all the way to when the SKU or the article is added to the cart, all the way to when it's when the cart is viewed and when it's checked out, right? There are at least 6 or 7 layers of dark patterns throughout the user journey in order to make the entire user journey slippery. Whether that means drip pricing, which you mentioned, right? While users may not understand drip pricing, it's essentially maybe clubbing all of those charges, putting it into one category, a view all button, which users generally don't press, right? Or maybe suggesting a cheaper alternative where margin profile is higher at the cart level, which I think recently a large quick commerce platform did a swap and save mechanism, right? Where you're essentially pushing the user to select another SKU in the same category, which may be cheaper, but where margins may be higher. So a bunch of these things throughout the user journey are are very discreet and subtle in nature for users, but when you actually understand the user journey, you understand that this slope is actually being it's slippery for users to just keep moving forward in the flow and creating larger baskets.
Let me just go across to Sachin Taparia to go through some details and findings of Local Circles, and we talked about drip pricing. What are the key ways, Sachin, in which dark patterns are used, and to what extent? I mean, the purpose is it's almost like a termite, right? Eating into your pocket and robbing you a few rupees at a time.
No, absolutely, Tamanna. We've been on this subject for 18 months now. And we have analyzed 228 platforms in India, ranging from banking to taxi apps and from insurance apps to quick commerce and e-commerce apps. And it's prevalent, everywhere. The good thing is that, now the government is aware. I think individuals like us on the show, we are aware. And the common consumer, at least the one who's on social media, is slowly becoming aware. And very simple examples, the classic example being, when you're booking a taxi, you open an app, it says nearest cab is 1 minute away. You go to the next step, right? And when you say that, look, this is where I want to go from point A to point B, it says your cab will take 16 minutes. So it's a classic bait and switch for you to go to the next step.
I have to come in on this, Sachin. I always thought this was some kind of a technical glitch. I always thought this was a problem because, maybe signals are not as fast. You're not showing me in terms of satellite where exactly the cab is. You're saying this is on purpose to keep me engaged onto the site.
Absolutely, 100%. So that way you go to the next step. And, this is something that you see across the board, right? You see that, all the fruits and veggies this morning are for ₹9, right? You go on the next step and it's only 4 of them that are for ₹9. The rest is all at regular price. Again, another bait and switch. So some of these dark patterns are fairly common, Tamanna. So bait and switch is very, very common. Like you said, our survey data, forced action is extremely common. where you get a consumer to download an app, forcefully saying to go to the next step, you need the app, or to give their email address or mobile number, or, in some cases, PAN card and even Aadhaar card in the cases of some of the, banking and other apps. So, forced action again is common. Drip pricing is extremely common. You go to a travel website or an airline website, you see a 5,000 rupee fare. When you get to checkout, right, the fare is 9,000 because you've added 4 more charges to it. A queued fee, a user fee, a convenience charge, and a seat charge, and everything else in between. So this is where people are dealing with these dark patterns on a day-to-day basis. They just don't know that this is actually a dark pattern. They feel manipulated, they feel cheated, right?
Yeah,
but they didn't know that there is this term or this umbrella called dark pattern. And the government, has come up with these 13 dark patterns. They have defined them, but there are more, right, which they have to add in the process of this, dark pattern implementation. And I'll touch on one of them and kind of, give you an idea. So one of the patterns that we have found, it's called privacy zookering, which is essentially you download an app, you look for an airfare or a hotel room, and it says that the airfare is 10,000 rupees, right? Now, based on what you are doing and how you are interacting with that itinerary and, checking different options, checking different flights, fares, connections, over a short period of time, they will increase that fare from 10,000 to 13,000 to get you to book it fast. Now, if you go on a different, device or in a different browser, you'll find that the fare is still 10,000. So this is something that is another, big manipulative dark pattern that has yet to be added to the government's list, essentially. So I think it's a good start. And more needs to be done here to really address all the issues that.
We'll come to the start and how it will work and how effective it will be in just a bit. I just want to understand this in a little more detail, because dark pattern is something that people are now figuring out that the term is there. They're now figuring out how to protect yourself. That's another question. How do you protect yourself from this? But Akash, Anand, I want to understand from you the why part of it. Why are companies doing it? Some of these are huge platforms, they're huge brands. Why this, there's a term called chindi. Why this little bit of, let's line our pockets with a few extra rupees here and there? Does it really add up that much eventually?
I'll answer this in a very simple way for you, Tamanna. We've all grown up and we've all visited mom and pop stores. We've all visited local shops, right? Now let's understand, we're all humans here. The apps we are talking about, who is running them? It's humans, right? Let's take an example. Let's say I own a sari shop and you've come to my shop today. I tell you, Tamanna ji, आइए. अरे मैम सिर्फ 2 साड़ियां बची हैं और ये 2 साड़ियां खत्म हो जाएंगी और स्पेशली आपके लिए मैंने इन साड़ियों पे 10% डिस्काउंट लगाया क्योंकि आप मेरे फेवरेट कस्टमर हो. You say, okay भैया दे दो. While going out, then I say, तमन्ना मैम रुकिए, एक कल ही एक और पीस आया है, इसमें ये डिस्काउंट चल रहा है, इसमें ऐसे आप ये ले लोगे तो मैं आपको दोनों का कंबाइंड बिल 5,000 रुपए कर दूंगा 4,000 रुपए की जगह. You say दे दो. Now, what do you call this?
No. It's not the same thing. Are you justifying it, Akash? Are you justifying,
I'm not justifying it?
Because one is a salesperson who works on a commission. One is a systemic app who is designed to loot you.
Everything, no, that's what I'm saying. Everything today that we see on our marketplaces, on tech, is obviously a derivation or an innovation on ancient practices, old practices. All I want to say is that this, what the term we're calling dark practices, should obviously come under certain laws, come under certain, parameters, just like how it's been done with general trade, modern trade, and every single other point of sale. The customers, as customers, we are smart, we are identifying these, and laws obviously should be made to curb practices that are unethical, that lead the customer towards a confusion or towards making a false decision. But there are certain practices that a lot of apps and marketplaces do to boost their own sales without hurting the consumers, which I feel should somehow be consumers be okay with.
Okay. Let me just get a counter. How is it not hurting the consumer if the consumer is not aware of it? Something which is being done with me that forces me or pushes me to make a decision that I am not party to is hurting me. It's taking me for a ride.
the consumer obviously should not be fooled. And just to give an example, continuing the example of the gentleman who was giving it before, so many times I have not checked out on Make My Trip. When I've seen a certain convenience fee, I have gone to an Ease My Trip where I figured out that the convenience fee does not apply. So yes, there are certain practices that are done by marketplaces to increase their revenue, but the consumers are also smart. The consumers are also deal seekers. It's a constant battle between a business or a tech app trying to get the most out of the consumer and a battle between the consumer looking for different options to get the best deal. So it works both ways. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad either. I'm just saying these tactics should be done within certain frameworks and certain parameters.
I don't know what framework and parameters would be okay with this. Dr. Anand Sharma, would like your input on this conversation that we've been having. One, the government is now stepping in and recognizing this as a problem. They've issued notices to 11 companies. Clearly, there is no leeway there. The notices will say, please stop. Whose responsibility is it to protect people?
As per the Consumer Protection Act, the dark patterns are the unfair trade practices and the tricks to misguide or mislead to the consumers. In a common business, the tactics for the business public or businessmen are using are not covered in the dark pattern. Dark pattern is only when they try to misguide or trying to use unethical practices that's come under the purview of the dark pattern. As per the Consumer Protection Act, if any tactics or any misleading advertising or unfair trade practices made by any businessman, it's covered under the unfair trade and consumer can get benefit and compensation through Consumer Protection Act. So without the issuing the guideline regarding dark patterns, it's already covered under the Consumer Protection Act. But consumer was not aware that businesses are using this kind of practices. So government come and they prepare a draft guideline, and then after the discussion with all the public, they issue certain guidelines in which 13 dark patterns they identify. But these are not the limit. In these guidelines also mention that additional practices can also cover in the dark patterns if they mislead the consumers.
Dr. Sharma, please can you explain to us what will the government do about this? Are you going to go in and tell companies stop doing this? Is there going to be a penalty? How is this going to be implemented?
And presently, already provisions are there, and consumer go to the Consumer Commission to relief and compensation. But government is trying to identify such things and providing to companies that these are the dark patterns and you should avoid these practices in your day-to-day business. So presently, they are doing work for the awareness, and they are also taking action, and some penalties already imposed on some companies. Central Consumer Protection Authority already taking the action on these issues.
Okay, thank you for that perspective, Dr. Anand Sharma, there from the consumer activist point of view. But Madhav Kasturia, I want to come to you on, is it feasible to actually stop this? And the why question, which I asked Akash as well. Why are companies indulging in this? Does it really make a huge difference eventually to the number of users on your platform?
Madam, I want they are
that question is to Madhav, yes.
Yes, I think while I totally agree that, consumers have to be treated fairly, but in all transparency, right? And in all fairness, Tamanna, think of it, the same Maggie packet that you were running to the nearest store and getting it, say, 5 or 6 years ago, that same Maggie packet is riding to you home in 7 minutes, right? It comes at a cost, it comes at a premium. Eventually, these quick commerce companies, a bunch of these super fast platforms have to charge the customers for this extra bit of convenience. In a value conscious economy like India, customers are not willing to pay for service, not willing to pay for convenience. While that does not justify the fact that a lot of this drip pricing is happening, all of these charges are being accumulated into one hidden line item, transparency has to kick in. But ultimately, these charges have to sort of be passed on to users in some form and factor. If you cannot increase the MRP in India, basis the Indian consumer laws, you have to charge extra line items to the customers. Of course, transparency has to kick in, but the cost of the convenience needs to be passed on to the end customer.
Okay, so why can't you just say that this is the delivery fee, which is also there? No one is, Madhav, no one is giving that packet of Maggi for free. It's costing more. There is a delivery charge, there is a service tax. You order one packet of Maggi, you're probably going to pay $100 just to get it there. One sec, Sachin Tapari, I want you to respond to this. I want you to respond to this. Is it okay? Is it okay to charge more because, consumer conscious customers and, you're giving the service?
Yeah, absolutely, Tamanna. So I'm going to respond to each one of the co-panelists here. They've all made a point where I have a comment to add. So the first thing is that, what we ask for is be transparent, right? So if my Maggi packet is going to cost 50 rupees for delivery and 7 rupees for the packet, my total can be 57 with those 50 and 7 as the breakdown, not 4 different charges that I cannot understand. So I think that's the first thing, which is be transparent and then let me decide whether the economics work for me or they don't work for me. So I think that is missing today for especially a lot of the, quick commerce and some of these, other platforms, and that needs to change. The second thing, and this is an issue, Tamanna, that you and I have discussed multiple times, which was happening earlier with some of the quick commerce platforms where people were receiving products close to expiry date, right? So product that should go to the dumpster was actually reaching people with just 10%, 15% shelf life available. It's still reaching, by the way. The enforcement by Consumer Affairs, Legal Metrology, and FSSAI has been extremely poor. But here, the reason I'm mentioning this is because one of the panelists, they mentioned about the fact that, you can compare offline to online. So this is where the difference is. In an offline scenario, in a physical retail scenario, you actually get to hold the packet and see that you only have, 1 day left on that packet of bread versus 5 days of shelf life. And you can look at the shopkeeper and see whether, it's genuine or it's something looks fishy or whatever and make a decision. This is missing in the online world. And hence you need all these controls and all these regulations.
Akash made that point. I want Akash to respond to it. You are working on trust. When you are willing to pay for something, you think of it this way, Akash. You go to your cart on any app, you pay the money and then you wait with the belief that it will come, as opposed to when you go to a store and you pick it up in your hand and then you pay. It's a huge difference.
Sachin is absolutely right. And in nowhere my point is around the quality or the expiry of the product. I was only talking about the sales tactics, the pricing tactics. No, and I said, in no way should the consumer be charged for a product that is inferior or that is close to expiry. The consumer has to be protected with the quality of the products. My only point was around sales tactics or pricing tactics in order to get more revenue from the consumer by the platform. So I will not even challenge the fact that it's okay to give a consumer a misleading product or an inferior product or a product close to expiry. Absolutely not acceptable. My point was only limited to the fact that pricing as a strategy or FOMO creation as a strategy is a sales tactic to get more sales, to get more clients, to get more revenue out of the consumer's pocket.
No, so Sachin, your response to that is it's a tactic. It's a tactic, and everyone does it.
So again, my point is that, the expiry date or the product quality example, it also applies to these tactics. If you are with a shopkeeper or a retail store owner, you'll look at the bill. You'll ensure that, everything that has been put on that bill is justifiable, right? The bill is right in front of you, whether it's a handwritten bill or whether it's a GST generated computer bill. Here in this case, that bill, has unknown, charges or unknown heads. Sometimes, even that information is missing and you really have to drill down to find that information, which you have the benefit. You'll ask the shopkeeper that, what is this 20 rupees for, right? That it is so again that human interaction, that physical touch and feel is missing in one transaction and it's there in the other transaction. So here a lot of it is happening on the trust that the consumer places on the platform to do things right.
And that's the trust which is being taken for a ride. I mean, I'm surprised that there is an argument for dark patterns. I'm surprised there is. Madhav, are you making an argument for dark patterns?
against dark patterns. In fact, I was just adding to a point. Yesterday evening, my dad took 5 minutes to find the cancel button on his Uber app. He was trying to cancel his Uber ride back home. It took him 5 minutes to find the cancel button on the app. And 2 people had to help him find that button. That's, one of the larger dark patterns that have come over in the last 5-6 years, sort of to increase friction in the user journey against cancellations.
Talking about that, another, I don't know if it's in the list of 13 dark patterns or not. You take a subscription. It's very easy to take a subscription. You give your credit card details. Try and cancel that subscription. And unfortunately, a lot of media outlets also end up doing that. That's, why do you want to be so desperate to hold on to consumers? Does that mean what you're selling is not that good at the end of the day? Akash, Anand, I want you to come in on this. There is going to be a crackdown, and as more and more people realize,
I would say
you're just going to lose people's faith.
That is just pure greed, and that comes from the human nature of being greedy for revenue, of being greedy for consumers. And as I said, any practice that puts consumers in inconvenience or fools the consumer should absolutely be controlled and curbed. No doubt about that at all.
So now, as we wrap up the show, let's leave our viewers with something that's useful to them. And Sachin, let me come to you on this first. So how do I, as a user, identify a dark pattern and protect myself from it?
So the 5 or 6, common dark patterns are in our survey, Tamanna, which are prevalent in India. This is, over 200,000 consumers across 392 districts. So that list is there for everybody to see, right? And whether it's forced action, subscription trap, bait and switch, drip pricing, interface interference, all of these are fairly common. So I think as a consumer, one must understand that these are, what the dark patterns are, what they mean. So next time when they see it, the least that they can do is take a screenshot of it if they feel that something is wrong. Share it on social media. If they don't want to go through some of the government apps, which, I must admit that they are quite cumbersome to use. So at least put it on social media. Social media is being heavily monitored by platforms like us as well as the government. So put it out on social media, let the public comment, let other consumers comment, basically. So that's one thing. And if it does get noticed, what I think you were asking Mr. Sharma earlier, there is an unfair trade practice notice for 10 lakh rupees, which goes out to a company, right? Once a lot of notices are going out to a company, what we are recommending to the government is to activate the Consumer Protection Act 2019 and file a class action against such platforms. So if you have, let's say, 50 different complaints of a particular quick commerce platform, go for a class action. And there you can then look at all the transactions that they've done and then go and have a huge compounding effect on the penalties and really, get them, or rather the whole industry, to stop, using such practices. So I think 1 or 2 of such cases will have to go to that level.
Make an example of a couple of people. The fact is that it's worldwide. It's a global practice. It's a global practice, and that'll probably be the counter argument. Everyone in the world is doing it. As a consumer, as a user of some of these sites, you're going to have to find hacks sooner or later. At least identify what is there, look at your cart carefully, because more often than not, perhaps that platform is trying to sneak in a few extra rupees out of your pocket. Well, thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the conversation today. That's all the time we have on The Big Question. But thank you to all of you for watching. Tell us what you think of the show. Tell us what you want us to cover next.